Okay. So we say an archaeologist has 6 ancient facts. So I'm really big on drawing right away because I just like want to put my pencil to paper and not get freaked out. So I write right away. So I'm like, all right, so we have a figurine, a headdress, a jar, a necklace, a plaque, and a tureen. No two of which are the same age. She will order them from first oldest to sixth most recent. Oh, I hate that. The fact that it's like, so first is oldest. I don't like that this is oldest, but okay. So we have oldest, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this one is, we'll put youngest. Okay. All right. And then I jump right into my rules. So the figurine is older than both the jar and the headdress. So how, if anybody gets lost while we're doing this, just let me know. But so the figurine is older. I always have to, as I first start, I always double check. I'm like, all right, figurine older. I know that's on the left side because we don't want to like diagram the whole game wrong. But if figurine is older than the jar and headdress, is everybody good up to this point? This is how you all would diagram it. And then I'm really big on, as I have a rule about a certain item, I put a dot underneath them as I go. So at the end, it's easier for me to find my floaters, or it's easier for me to see which items are the most constrained. So I just put dots on them as I go. Okay, and then my next rule says the necklace and the jar are both older than the tureen. So if the necklace, oh, I don't like this. Okay, so I have to go up. I'm going to see my jar and I'm going to make the inference here. Where, okay, so the necklace and the jar are both older than the tureen. Oh, someone says, can you please click continue? It's blocking the screen. What is it? Click on continue. What continue do I have to click on?
The part that said this meeting is being recorded.
Oh, I did. Maybe I think you might need to refresh. Just try to
Oh,
refresh
that's
it.
me. Sorry. I
Okay.
have to
Oh,
click
oh,
on
you
it.
had to click on it. Okay, cool. So there we
Sorry.
go. So now we have this. I'm just gonna move this down so I have more space. And this is also like when I have a piece of scrap paper, why I start in the middle of my scrap paper so I don't run out of room. All right, so we have this part so far. And already I'm thinking, okay, cool. All right, so then I'm going to go on to rule number 3, which says either the plaque is older than both the headdress and the necklace, or the headdress and the necklace are older than the plaque. All right, so I want everybody to, for a second on your own, how would you diagram rule number 3? And just write it down and we'll go over it in like 30 seconds once you have a chance to look at it. All right, so then for this rule, we have either the plaque is older than both the headdress and the necklace. So I stop at this comma and I just write this out first so I don't get confused by everything. So I'm like, okay, so rule number 3, we have either the plaque is older than the H and the N, or both the headdress and the necklace are older than the plaque. And then I look at what I had already and think about what does this mean for the graph that I've already created or the diagram I've already created. And I would then automatically, one, I'm mad because I don't like how, let me find a different color. I don't like how I have P, H, and N here. And I'm like, that J's in the way and that annoys me, just personal preference. And so I'm never afraid to cross something out and just redo it. Like, rewrite it. Yes, Elka?
Um, okay, the greater or less than signs are kind of throwing me off with
Oh,
the
those are just they're just carrots. So I'm saying P is before H and P is before N. They're not
oh,
actually greater or less than signs.
okay.
I just draw them. Like, how do you do you like if I do H's before P, is that how you do H's before P? Or how do you do
No,
it?
no, usually I would do the way you're writing it, but just how they flip, I think that's what.
Oh, okay, because we have an or here, right? So we're saying
Okay.
that P is either before H and N, or H and N are both before P.
Okay.
Do we see that? Okay, so let's go back up to this rule. So what does the first half of this rule say?
Either the plaque is older than both the headdress and the necklace.
So how would you draw that part?
Um, I would do the P. I call it the greater sign.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, no,
Um,
you're right. It is. Actually, that's the less than sign.
okay, the less than sign.
The less than sign, yes. P less than sign, H and N. So this is what you would do, correct?
Yeah, I would even probably. So, are you doing it to signify that H and N, and
No,
are
I'm
you
saying
doing
that
it?
they both are behind it. Technically, there's no relationship between H and N,
Okay,
right? Like I'm just saying P is before H and P is before N. That's all I'm saying so far.
yeah,
That's all that means.
right. But when you got to H and N, how come you didn't do that? They're both. Oh, okay. I think I see
Hold on
why.
one second. We'll go ignore this top part. Let's really just focus in on this rule and make sure that we understand it, and just ignore
Okay,
my comments of why I'm mad about H and N up here.
okay.
Um, okay, so you agree that the first part of this rule you have it diagrammed correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then how do you diagram the second half of that rule?
Um. Well, I guess when I did it, I just put because for me the signs just mean which is before. So
Right.
I just
But
did
what does the second half mean?
the headdress and the necklace, they're older, so they're gonna be before the plaque.
Yeah, so isn't that what I did?
Yeah, I think it's just the sign because I did it the sign similar to the P. But now I see it's
Oh,
probably
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I put them in actual order because that's too much. Like to actually like just flip it is like too confusing for me. Like I like what this means to me is that either P is going to be like over here, like one, and then like H and N are both going to be below it, or P has to come after H and N.
okay.
So
Now
that's
I see
essentially
why.
what this rule is saying, right? Is
Yeah,
that P cannot be between H and N. I mean, at the end of the day, what this rule is getting at is that whether this is like whether it's HPN or NPH, it's just saying that P cannot go in between them, right? Like, do we see that?
yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're now back to me being salty at LSAC. What I'm mad about is I don't like how my when I drew my diagram up here, my N and H aren't next to each other, so it's hard for me to like add in this to my diagram. That's what I was mad about. So what I automatically would do is I actually wouldn't have a 1 through 6 anymore. Even though I would have drawn it, I'm just going to erase it for now. On my test, I would just leave it there. I wouldn't erase it or anything. I'm just going to do it for more space. But my first reaction is to automatically create two scenarios here. And what I'm going to do for the first one is I'm going to put P before H and N. And so what I have to do here is make it so it works with my diagram. And so what I'm going to do is on my test, what I would do is I would flip my H and J here. I would know to do that. I would just for diagramming purposes. So it's the same thing, right? All I did is draw it flipped. And then I would go in and, oh wait, that doesn't help me because I have J and T before N. P, H, and N. I don't like this J. I would think about this for a second, what I would do. I wouldn't spend this time thinking about it, that's for sure. P, H. So I know J and N are both before T. H, J, N. Okay, never mind. This isn't going to be that helpful. So if I have J and N before T, essentially in one of them, we have P and H before N. So I would probably just draw over here, P before H and N. Or what I would do on my test is I would draw P here and do it in front of N. And then I would draw another H and I would just circle it and circle it up here so I know they're the same thing. Does that make sense? And then I would quickly create a second world where I have H and N before P.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know you said P before P, then H, then no, P, H, then N. Could it be P, N, H as well? Or
Yes,
no?
yes. P, sorry,
Okay.
P is before H and N in no particular order.
Okay. And when I see both, I think I forgot. There's no specific
Nope.
designation for that.
Yeah, there's no relationship between the two.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
then I would then create my little scenario again. And I would have, so I would draw F, H, J, T, and N. And this time I have H and N before P. So here I would draw a P, and here I would draw a P, and I would just circle them so I knew that they were the same thing. And so I would have both scenarios here. And then I'm going to count my letters up really quickly where I have F, H, J, N, T, P, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6. So what's nice is I don't have any floaters in this, right? Like I have all of my relationships going on. Amani, do you have a question? That might have been from previously.
That was previously, but now I kind of do again. When you circle the P, is that because that's a random or?
No,
because they're both.
Great question. You're right. This is a bad diagram. I typically circle my floaters, but in this situation, I don't have floaters and I'm circling it just because it's the same variable and I don't want to get confused. And the reason is it's hard to come in here and draw H and N next to each other for P to follow.
Okay, so what you're saying is it can go either way. P can be after H or P can be after N down here.
Actually, what I'm saying is it's after both. Like it's true in both situations. It's literally the same.
Okay. So then.
Yeah. So
I understand now. So
yeah, it's a little
regardless of how
I didn't know how to draw it, to be honest. I'm like, I'm just gonna draw it in twice and just know that it's the same variable here. So for example, like if I had a question about P in this world and I'm looking at number 2, I know that P has to come after N, H, and F. Because I just didn't know how to better connect it.
Okay, I understand. But in no particular, well, for H and N, they can be either or.
Yes, I have world 1 here and I have world 2. I'm big on worlds. I would do this on the test. I would create both scenarios and then I would go directly into my questions.
Okay.
Just for practice though, what letters could potentially be first in this game?
F.
F is 1, yep. What else potentially could be first?
P.
P, yep.
J.
No, J always has to be after F.
Okay, good. Okay.
I think that, there's one more, I believe. Yeah.
Talking about
N?
N, excellent. Yes, I'm going to draw that as a capital N. I hate N and H's on a test because I don't draw my sticks on my H's very well or my N's very neatly. So I always have to use capital letters. Excellent. Okay, so now I would go into the questions here. And how I attack the first question is I actually read my rules again because I'm someone that can misread rules and I use it as an opportunity to cross things off fast. So for the first one, it says the F is older than both the J and H. I'm going to look for F being before J and H on these. And if not, I'm going to cross it off. So here, well, whenever F, I would be like, oh, F's first in A, B, C. So I don't even have to read those. But in D, I have J before F, so I would cross that off. And in E, it works. So that's fine. I would go then on to rule 2 where it says necklace and jar are both order than the tureen. So I would actually look for the tureen to be last. So I'm not even going to look at rules A and C because the tureen is automatically last. So that's easy. But I'm looking for NJ before T.
So E.
So I can cross off B.
E.
Yep. And then I can cross off E too because the necklace and jar, because the tureen is before them.
Mm-hmm.
And so then without even looking at the last, we have 2. All right. And then for E, I know it has to go either PHN or HNP. So in A, we have HNP, so that works. And in C, we have PH, we have NPH, and that splits them up, so that doesn't work. So I would cross C off and I would go with A. All right, so then after I do my typical first question, I skip and go to my if questions first. So I would skip 7, I would skip 8, and I would go straight to 9 and do the if question. And so if the figurine is third, which of the following must be second? So I would automatically draw out my little scenario. I would put figurine in third and go ahead and try answering this question on your own, and then we'll go over it. All right, Ilka, so what was the first thing that you did for this one when we put figurine as third? Where did your mind go?
Well, I guess my first thought was that H and J. Oh,
okay. If figurine is third, so I went down and I looked at figurine in both of my scenarios. And I was like, well, if figurine is third, then who potentially, I'm like, okay, there has to be 2 before them. And which scenario allows for there to be things before it? And so I went over and I was like, it has to be, we're looking at world 1, right? Like we can't be in world 2 because in world 2, N can be before it, but nothing else can be before H or F. I mean, I'm sorry. Do you see that? Because F has to be before, in world 2 here, F has to be before H, P, J, and T. So that doesn't even work.
Okay.
So I knew I wasn't dealing with that one. So then I was looking at world 1 here. And I was like, okay, well, if it's F isn't first, P has to be first then, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, so what could be second then? So if I'm looking at this, what could potentially be second that doesn't have to be after F?
N.
And you could even do process of elimination here. Like can H has to be after F. So I'm putting H over here. J has to be after F. So I'm putting J over here. J has to be after T. So I'm putting that over here. So that's all 3 of them, right? So what's left?
Only N.
N, yeah. N, it can go P, then, because there's no relationship between F and N here. So our answer is going to be C. Do we see that?
Yeah.
Do we feel good about that?
I see it. I feel like it was just probably taking me so much longer because I don't know why. Lately, I've been going through each answer choice.
I'm sorry,
yes.
what?
Lately, I've been going through each answer choice to fit it in, but I feel like that's probably taking too long, and I don't want to pick up bad habits.
Well, I don't think there's necessarily. I wonder. I'm not a game expert teacher. Like I tutor games, but I don't live in it day to day of like LR. I can tell you like this is the absolute best way. Like I know like sometimes the wasted things you have to do to spend your time on to get good at skills. And I'm curious of like maybe checking every answer choice. Maybe there's value in it because it teaches you then how to get faster in the future because it makes you start to see things.
Okay.
And I don't know that, like, you know, like, cause like, does that make sense? Like, I wouldn't be completely against it.
Okay. And I do follow like process of elimination. It's just sometimes I'll just literally go through each answer choice.
Do you watch game explanation videos?
No, I've kind of fell off on that, but
Yeah,
I'm
like
starting new.
like if you have 7 Sage or LSAT Demon, every game you do,
Mhm.
you should watch the game explanation video, even if it's just the setup, just to get faster and hear them talking about how to make inferences.
Okay, I'll definitely. I have 7 Sage. I'll do
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, you should take advantage of that. Like, even if you get every question right, and then you should look at their suggested time and see, okay, what can I do to get faster then?
Okay.
All right, and then let's look at, okay, so then I would go on to number 10, and it says, if the plaque is first, then exactly how many artifacts are there, any of which could be second? All right, so I go down and I'm like, all right, so in which one of these would it be easy? So in which world, 1 or 2, can the plaque be first? Okay. 1, right?
The first
Okay.
one.
So then if we're looking at that, how many other, then I would just go through and I'd be like, okay, I would start with the first one. Can F be second then?
F can be second.
Yep. Can H be second? Nope, because it has to be after F, so I'd cross that one off. Can J be second?
No.
Can T be second?
No.
Nope. Can N?
No.
Yeah, awesome. So how many can be second then?
Just 1.
No, we have 2 circled. F and N, right?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yes. Perfect. Okay, cool. You said yes. So like, do we see that's 2? Excellent. All right. So then I would go back and I would see the substitution question and run. Just kidding. I would go back to number 7 then and start here. And so it says exactly how many of the artifacts are there, any of which could be first. So go ahead and put your answer in the chat once you have this answer.
Which one is this?
Number 7. All right. Excellent. So here I go down and I say, which of the following could be first? I go look and I circle and I'm like, all right, I know F can be first. I know P can be first. I know N can be first. I'm looking for 3. I go up to my answer choices. I see 3 as C. I select it and move on. Great job, everybody, on that one. And then for 8, it says, which of the following artifacts cannot be fourth? So I would quickly draw out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm just a very visual learner. A lot of people wouldn't have to do this, but I'd be like, okay, I'm looking for what cannot go here. What would be your first reaction of solving this one, Amani? Like, what would be your gut reaction?
I think I would go probably through the different worlds and start with figurine. Cannot be fourth. So I would see that can't be fourth because it's so many other letters that have to go.
So what I do on these is I would start with the extremes of the ends, right? Like, so I would start by testing either F or T. Because in my head, like, those are the most extreme answer choices. Like, on N.
Yes.
And so, for example, let's start with T just so we can practice being wrong. Well, I think wrong. But T, oh, actually, that's not a great example because we're talking about fourth. So I'm like, okay, could T, never mind. That's actually a terrible example. I want to look at the extreme end of the front end. So you're absolutely right about figurine. And so what's the latest that figurine can go? That's a good question for people. What is the latest that figurine can go?
I think third because on number 9, because at first when you asked me, I only had 5 drawn out, 5 slots, and I was freaking out because
yes, that's how you freak out in a game, right? Whenever you do like a minor error like that, and you're like, wait, this is not working.
Yeah. So I would say third.
Excellent. Yeah. And if we test that, we know for sure that 1, 2, 3 have to come after it no matter what.
Mhm.
And so because we did the if question first here, we have a piece of cake, right? Like, yeah, like, because we already played with this rule a little bit. So we get to select A and move on. Excellent. Okay, and so now after we did this whole game, to get to your question, Elka, of how to handle substitution questions. Sorry, I am terrible at substitution questions if I don't do the whole game, because I feel like how I teach substitution questions is based on doing the game and understanding the rules, right? Like I would never just open it up and do a game and just do the substitution question. But here what I'm looking at, so it says, which of the following, if substituted for the information that the necklace and the jar are both older than the tureen, would have the same effect in determining the order? So when I have a substitution question, if I don't have that rule still drawn out, or if I added to it, I make sure to draw it out again so it's very clear. So we're saying N and J are both older than the tureen. And then I go, if I have worlds then, or if I have scenarios, I go in and I find it and I circle it so I know what I'm dealing with and what I'm trying to replace. So here it's this,
Okay.
and here it's this. So what would make this have the exact same order? And so this is like a top-down question in LR, right? We have to stay between the lines. So the rule can't do more or less than what this rule is requiring. So it can't be too strong or too mild. So A says the tureen is older than the headdress, but not as old as the figurine. So if I drew this, it would say T is H, but not as old. So it's F, T, H. Does that do the same thing as what NJT did?
No.
No. Do you think, Elka?
Well, I don't see because it doesn't really connect to.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. Like, do we ever have T before H in our scenarios?
No.
No. So this is an easy one to cross off.
Okay.
That's a bad answer choice. It's not like we're really just looking for, we're trying to find something that is just as similar, that is synonymous to this.
Okay.
Okay. B says the figurine and the necklace are both older than the T. So if F and N are both older than T, does that do the same thing for us?
F and N, they're older. I mean, it looks the same because.
Okay, so if F and N were both older than T, does that make J have to be older than T?
No.
No, and that's why that one's wrong, because it's not strong enough. Do we see that?
I see that.
So we get to be really picky on these answer choices.
Okay.
All right. C says the necklace is older than the T if and only if the jar is. The necklace is, okay, so the necklace is older than the T if and only if the jar is. I don't like this one because this is saying that if it's not, then it's T before N and J. And do we have any, oh, someone's calling me now. Sorry. Do we have anything? So right now what I'm looking at when it says the necklace is older than the tureen if and only if the jar is, what I'm looking for is, do we have anything saying that the N or J has to be before T other than this rule? And we don't, right? So I'm like, So what C is saying, because what does if and only if mean, Elka?
Condition, like
It's
if-
it's both ways, right? So this is saying the necklace is older than the jar if and older than the tureen if and only if the jar is. So what this means is that if the necklace is older than the tea, the jar is as well. But this can be flipped as well, where this is saying that if the tea is older than the necklace, then the tea is also older than the jar. And so that's not what our rule is saying, because
okay,
this lets it go the other way. So I would cross C off for that.
okay.
All right. All right. D says all of the artifacts except the headdress and the plaque must be older than the tea. All right. So all of the artifacts except the headdress and the plaque. I don't hate that one to start with. I would, if I was doing the test, I would skip it and go see if I can cross E off before I would spend a lot of time on D, because I think that one might work.
Okay.
So then when I go to E, it says the plaque is older than the necklace if and only if the plaque is older than the tureen. So the plaque is older than the necklace if and only if the plaque is older than the tureen. Well, that has nothing to do with our rules at all. So I would cross that off. And I would even get to D just by process of elimination. But let's see why it works. So it says all of the artifacts except the headdress and the plaque must be older than the tureen. So if that's the, I don't even know where to draw this at. So if that's the case, what must be before the tureen then? If it's not the headdress and not the plaque? J, N, and F. Which, the reason that this is not too strong is we already have F before J here. So we already knew that J is before T. So this was already happening. So this is the exact same rule as N and J being before T.
Oh, I get it.
Yes. Awesome. And so that's why our answer is D.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions on this game?
I see it now, but I feel like if I would have saw the question itself, I wouldn't have known to set up a separate rule like that.
Would you
I don't know
know,
what I would have
you
done.
know to practice that now?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. Good. That at least, because like it's not something that just comes overnight for sure.